We made it happen. Jimmy was an incredible success. I don't know where he is. I got to find him. Gosh, I don't. Oh.
Oh yeah, George. Oh, George.
Right
George.
here. Yeah.
Hey, we did it, brother.
Yes, we
hey,
did.
Thanks to Dan. You know what? And in the ring with Dan and Benny. Hey, brother, man, hey, he's about the most cat. I just love him to death. I love you. Thanks for having me. Hey, you're the best. I'm telling you, brother. In the ring with
Dan and Benny.
Yeah.
We love you. Thank you so much.
Dan.
Mwah.
Oh yeah.
Hello, friends, and welcome to another edition of Dan and Benny in the Ring. I'm Dan Spasciano, joined as always by the playa himself, Benny Scala. Benny, how you doing, buddy?
Dan, I am super excited because both your beloved Baltimore Orioles and my New York Yankees, the pitchers and catchers, report to spring training tomorrow. And let's face it, we're really a baseball podcast under the guise of a wrestling podcast. But it just reminded me of the line by the Moyle before he did the bris. It won't be long now.
Well, it's funny. It's Valentine's Day. We're having some fun with this. But and of course, I mean, isn't that really what the Super Bowl is about, Benny? It's the signal that baseball starts next week.
That's right. It's the segue. It's the road instead of the road to WrestleMania. It's really the road to baseball.
Road to baseball. I like it. Well, we're going to do something a little different tonight. You and I were talking about this earlier. We've had some requests through the years, and we've been doing this for a couple of years now, of some of our older episodes, because we did a lot of heavy edits. We did some updates of going back over kind of unused footage, as for lack of a better term, unused sound. And really re-editing, remastering some of our old shows. And given what this is Valentine's Day week, 2024. Obviously, 2024 is 40 years. You mentioned the road to WrestleMania. WWE has been hyping it up. January of 1984 was the birth of Hulkamania. He beat the Iron Sheik. And between January of 84 and what would become WrestleMania was one of the hottest streaks at the time. It was the highest grossing house show streak wrestling had ever seen. And we wanted to touch on an old episode we did. This was actually originally it was our 8th episode. This was broadcast almost 3 years to the day ago. We did an interview with Ivan Putski, and we wanted to remaster and get back to that and share it with a lot of our new listeners.
Yeah. The two things that I remember most about this interview was, well, besides Ivan being great, was that number one, we had to cancel this interview for a week because the guy, I mean, Ivan is old school. I think all he had was a house phone. And the week we were supposed to interview him was the week of the ice storm in Texas. So he had no home phone. It wasn't, I think it was that next Saturday that he actually had power again. And we were able to do it the following Tuesday. So that was the one thing. And the other thing is when we first, I think when we chatted offline before the show, he said he wouldn't sing My Melody of Love because he had a sore throat. And then at the end, he sang like a frigging canary. So that was great.
I remember you got him to he serenaded you. It's funny being Valentine's Day because we were joking about your now that you've got Ivan singing, you that might put an end to your some of the dating jokes, but 3 years later that never happened.
No, it's forever.
Well, the reason we wanted to look at this time period is because, like I said, this is Valentine's Day week 2024. It's 40 years ago. You're at the peak of the house show circuit. Right around this time, February through April of 1984, the WWF was doing cross promotions. And at the time, Hulk Hogan is in Japan wrestling. You remember this was when he could wrestle 400 days a year because of the international date line.
Right. Yeah.
And
sometimes 8 times in 7 countries in the same day.
Yeah, Hogan's recollection of dates might be a little off, but you had a big house tour through the Northeast, and that was really highlighted by your predominant mid-card feuds, tag titles, in this case, the Intercontinental title, you had at the time, the Intercontinental title was held by The Rock, the real one true Rock to me at
The
my
original
age.
Rock, yes.
Yeah, the original. Well, I mean, the original Rock, Don Morocco, and he was in a multi-person, kind of a multi-person circular feud. Don Morocco, Ivan Putski, Sergeant Slaughter, and the Masked Superstar. They were trading matches, they were trading events, and before this is 40 years ago. This week was the Intercontinental title match between Don Morocco and Ivan Putski, ended at a double DQ. Very, a lot common back then when you have the guys that fight outside the ring and just never, back when refs actually did a 10 count. And you had some great stuff, but I have the card here. This was New York. At the time, it was called the RPI Fieldhouse. This is the third oldest hockey rink or hockey arena in the country. Northwestern, and of all places, Princeton. Only 2 hockey rinks in the country older than this, and so that was also a big deal because
Rensselaer Poly, right, Dan?
What's that?
Was it Rensselaer Poly, right? Was
Correct.
that the name of the? It's somewhere upstate New York, somewhere in Podunk.
Troy is where it is.
Okay.
Troy, New York. And this was a big deal because you didn't really run wrestling shows and hockey rinks back then. There was a lot of conversion. And even with the full ice setup, you had 10,000 people in this building, and it was, big house. I want to read you the card, Benny. This is the actual official card. I've got it in front of me. This was, like I said, this was a week ago or 40 years ago this week. Opening match is Tiger Jackson and the Haiti Kid defeating Dana Carpenter and Poncho Boy.
Okay.
Then match number 2 is the Iron Sheik defeating B. Brian Blair. Then the third match is what we were talking about: WWF Intercontinental title, Don Morocco and Ivan Putski, and then a double DQ. Then you've got the World Tag Team title match between Soul Patrol, of course, Rocky Johnson and Tony Atlas, defeating the team of Sergeant Slaughter and Tiger Chung Lee. And the main event, Andre the Giant and the Masked Superstar. Now, defeating the Masked Superstar. Now, give you an idea, 2 little fun facts here. One, we talked about this offline. At this point, Ivan Putski was already in his 40s. The
43.
Average age, what's that?
43 he was.
Yep, the average age of wrestlers on this card, 34.3 years, in an era when that was already almost retirement age.
Right.
So you had some older guys working. But it's also a big deal because prior to this event, Ivan Putski had won a battle royal with the likes of the Iron Sheik, B. Brian Blair, the Haiti Kids, Sergeant Slaughter, Tony Atlas, the Masked Superstar. They just Hall of Famer after Hall of Famer in this battle royal, which had been moved, of all things, and they ended up having it in the high school gym. I couldn't figure out. I found the article where they announced it was moving, but I couldn't find evidence of why it did. I wish we could get Ivan or somebody to explain that. But they moved it to a high school gym. Ivan wins the battle royal, gets the Intercontinental title match. It's a great run, house show, and this wasn't, of course, not too long, as Ivan mentions in our interview with him. Right around the time Vince Jr. takes over is when he leaves the company. He starts pursuing bodybuilding and other things. So, I mean, you've got just such, and think about this: Andre the Giant, Masked Superstar, Don Morocco, Ivan Putski, Rocky Johnson. You look at, this is the B show. The main stars, what they would consider the A show, are in Japan right now. Hulk Hogan and all them. That's how deep the roster was in '84.
Yeah. When you think of, I mean, that would be, I would go see that card if I was within driving distance. It's a good card.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's I mean, to think like that much, and you figure this was a hockey house, so maybe tickets were $10, 1984.
Yeah.
To see just a B-roll of Hall of Famers is phenomenal stuff. But so go ahead.
No, I was going to say that, and I think we talked about it because I looked on the pro wrestling, the wrestling database that we use, and he was still being booked very strong in 1984. His win-loss percentage. Now, granted, I mean, it's not very exact, and but from what I could see, he was still winning the majority of his matches. Yeah,
with the information I was able to find in 1984, he won over 70% of his matches.
Right, and these are, I mean, the other guys who homesteaded in the WWF, like a Danucci, a Cicluna, a Johnny Rods, a SD Jones, all those guys, like by the time they were in their later years, they were pretty much, doing the enhancement deal. Putski was still being booked pretty strong.
Yeah, no, and exactly. And I mean, because he was a huge draw. He talks about that in the interview when we get to it. But I want everyone to listen to this because it's also kind of a neat archive of history because we're going to talk about stuff in the interview that ended up coming to fruition, and he mentioned some stuff in the interview that I think has aged well for what wrestling history is. So for everyone's viewing pleasure, this is remastered, this is re-edited and uploaded in its entirety. So all mistakes, bits, all in there, everything as it was. This was us and Ivan Putski 3 years ago this week. So great stuff. I want everyone to listen to it. Benny, how you doing today?
Can't complain. Beautiful day down here in Florida.
Hey, Florida weather been nice to you? Has the Florida weather been helping your dating life any?
Well, So I figured that the dog show thing didn't work. I figured I'd leave that behind. And I figured I'd just try the normal. Take a girl out for a nice dinner, and pick her up, new one here, and bring it to the restaurant. And the waiter says, "What will you have?" And she looks at him and says, "Yes." So that was a little bit scary. And not for anything. A doggy bag should not have to fit inside of the back of a U-Haul. That's all I'm saying.
That's true.
So the search continues.
Oh, man. Well, we say a lot. We talk the past. We talk the territories. You've mentioned it before, Benny, on the show, how the word legend is thrown around a lot today. But I think our guest today truly classifies and qualifies under that title. Benny, I want you to introduce our guest to the world.
Absolutely a legend. And not only a legend in wrestling, but this man has done a lot of different things. He played football. He played professional football. He competed at the highest level in professional bodybuilding. He also was in the World's Strongest Man competition, besides having an iconic and legendary career in wrestling. So it is absolutely my pleasure and my privilege to introduce the one and only Polish Power, Ivan Putski. How are you, sir?
Okay, how y'all doing?
Can't complain.
Okay, that's good.
Like I said at the top of the show, it is an honor to talk to you. Anybody that has ever watched or been influenced by wrestling I guarantee they like your work. They know who you are. It's truly an honor to talk to you.
Well, I tell you, I really enjoy wrestling, and I love it, so to speak. It's opened up a lot of doors for me, and I'm grateful for it, and I can't think of a better sport right now that I've participated in than professional wrestling.
Absolutely.
Can understand that. I can definitely understand that. Benny, as this was your pitch and put together, you get the first question for the Polish legend himself.
All right. Well, Mr. Putski, first of all, when what you just said about wrestling, you really looked like you absolutely enjoyed every second you were in that ring. And I mean, that made us fans happy too, because it was very obvious. But my first question actually is about football. So you played football in high school. And you went into the Army, and correct me if my research isn't right. You went in the Army. You actually played football in the Army, and you were like on the all-Army football team. And then after that, you went to college at Southwest Texas State. You played football there. And then you played football for the Toronto Argonauts and then the San Antonio Toros. I mean, that in itself is a career.
Well, you forgot to mention I made all conference in Southwest Texas.
And now keep in mind that although you're a very strong and powerful man, you're not you're not like a huge guy. I mean, you played football. I think 5'9", but yet you were a giant amongst men. What got you into football?
Well, that's good. It's a contact sport, and that's what I'm all about. I like to go in there and mix it up with people, So football was, I love football.
Okay. And you played fullback, correct?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Right. Then it's the same thing as a running back now.
Right. But the fullback is more of a power back where you are going to do a lot of blocking, correct?
That's right.
Okay. So, what got you into football? Just because you knew that you could knock people around?
Well, yeah, because it's a rough sport, and I love rough sport.
Okay. All righty. Can you hear Ivan there, Dan?
I don't know if it's a connection issue, but you're getting real quiet there, Mr. Putski.
Can you hear me?
That's better.
There
Yes,
you
sir.
go.
Okay.
Well, let me ask you something. I know Benny talked football. Your first stint in wrestling in Texas. You mentioned how
Right.
that was your baby. You love more
Well,
than anything.
I got started in Austin, Texas, and San Antonio by a promoter named Joe Blanchard. I don't know.
Tully's dad.
He's the father of a guy used to wrestle named Tully Blanchard.
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you remember, but
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Joe Blanchard got me started. Heck of a guy, I tell you. I loved old Joe. He was like a father to me.
Well, do you mind telling the story of how you and like how Joe Blanchard ended up recruiting you into wrestling?
Yeah, I was coaching at the time, and he came up, and he read about me and playing football, and he heard of me, and he came down, and I had my knee operated on. That was the end of my football career at the time, and I was going to teach school. I majored in PE, and I was going to teach physical education in San Antonio, and he came down to my house, and I was built, really built. Well, you know how good I was built, and
absolutely.
then I was really ripped and built good, and I always worked out. And he, you know how he got me into wrestling?
No idea.
How's that?
He came over. He came over my house and said, "How much do you make coaching right now a year?" And I said, "I'll make about." And at the time, that was a good salary. I said about $9,000 a year. And he says, "Well, I tell you what, I guarantee you $100,000 a year if you'd wrestle for me." I said, "Well, hell, you don't." So he got me in his. He was promoting there, and he taught me everything. He showed me what it was all about, and taught me all the hoes, the moves, and that's how I got started with Joe Blanchard. God bless his soul.
Benny, I know you said you had a long list of questions.
Yeah, I'm chomping at the proverbial bit here. So
yeah, of course,
Ivan,
I see you chomping at the bit there. Go for it.
I don't know how you chomp, but the first match that I could find that you actually wrestled was July 2nd, 1969. You drew with Reggie Parks in San Antonio, but that was as Joe Bednarski. Now on August 24th, 1971, was the first time that
Hang on, Benny.
Okay.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, right. Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Benny.
Okay, and so, but August 24th, 1971, was the first time that I found that you wrestled as Ivan Putski. And on August 24th, you defeated Gypsy Joe Rosario in Little Rock, Arkansas. So how did you get the name Ivan Putski?
Well, I came to America. I'm from Poland. You know that, right?
Right. Yes, sir.
We were in a Nazi labor camp during the war, and I was born in '41. And the reason I'm still alive, we weren't Jewish. They were murdering all the Jewish people, but they used the non-Jews for labor. And, at the end, they probably got rid of us, too. And thank goodness for the Americans. They liberated us. And
there we go.
1950, we came to America ended up in Smithfield, Texas, working on a ranch, and you know, I grew up. Actually, I grew up in Texas. Then we moved to Austin, where my dad was a real good carpenter, and there's a company named Calcasieu Lumber Company, and they heard of him. They hired him, and then and I went to high school in Austin, Texas, then college in San Marcos, Southwest Texas State. At the time, it's Texas State now.
Okay.
Played football, made all conference fullback there, and then I played pro ball in Canada, and then I got into Joe Blanchard got me into professional wrestling, and the rest is history.
Yes, sir. But did you make up the name Ivan Putski, or did a promoter make that up for you?
Well, we both did. Me and Joe Blanchard, you know, he said, look, Joe, my real name is Joe. And he said, you're from Poland, and let's get you a gimmick like you're Polish, and you where you can't speak English. So I speak, then, you know, I can speak Polish real good because I came from Poland. So he would get an interpreter in the ring, and on TV, we'd be on TV, and the interpreter would ask me questions in Polish because he was, you know, he could speak, and I would answer him in Polish, and he would interpret it to the crowd in English.
Okay.
And
That's funny.
and after that is all history. I sold out every arena I went to. And first time I was in Madison Square Garden, they turned people away. So but I'd like to just mention two best promoters I ever worked for was Joe Blanchard of San Antonio and Paul Bosch of Houston.
Okay. You know, and speaking of that, Mr. Putski, is on June 29th, 1973, I have that you wrestled.
Hey, just call me Ivan. That's okay.
Well, I was raised right, Ivan. My parents taught me respect, but thank you for that. So on June 29th, 1973, which actually is 12 days after I graduated high school and 5 days after my 18th birthday, you wrestled Harley Race for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship at the Sam Houston Coliseum. I think it was 2 out of 3 full match. Now, you were only 4 years in wrestling. You really climbed up the ladder very quickly. Do you remember that match?
Yeah, I remember Harley Race, right?
Yes, sir. One of the greatest ever. Yeah, I mean, you gave him a run for his money, too.
That's right. And nice guy, Harley. And, you know, I got disqualified, so, you know. But, yeah, there's a lot of, I was fortunate, you know, I stayed in pretty long time, and I met a lot of good people that were in the wrestling business and promoters, and so I feel, but best promoter I ever worked for was Paul Bosch of Houston.
Well, and I have another, Ivan, in 1974, early 1974, you spent some time in the AWA. For Vern Gagne. But now, you had to be one of the busiest guys in wrestling, because even when you were in the AWA, I think you were still making shots for Texas, because I have on 2 consecutive days, July 2nd, 1974, you're in Dallas. And then July 3rd, day later, you're in Winnipeg. And it's not like it's a hop, skip, and a jump. That's like many thousands of miles of travel. So,
well, you know, go ahead.
No, I mean, is that something like back in, because now, I mean, everybody's exclusive. You wrestle for Vince McMahon, you can't wrestle for anybody else. But it looks like, you know, many times, even when you were in the WWF, you still were able to wrestle for the AWA or Texas. So is that something that you could do back in that day?
Well, no, I was in demand. I told, when I was in New York, I told Vince McMahon Sr., now, see, that's who I worked for. I didn't work for when his son took over. That's when I quit and got out of there.
That's right about
But
the year. You're correct.
yeah, but I was in great demand, and so the promoters, hey, if they didn't like it, hell, they don't have to book me. I do what I want to do.
From what I've seen, you didn't have any problem getting booked because you routinely wrestled 250 matches a year, and that's on WrestlingData.com. And those things usually are, they're not complete. So I'm thinking you probably wrestled more than 300 times a year.
Oh yeah, I did, but it's got. I was gung ho then, and every promoter they would call me up, and I'd go. But finally, eventually, I got so tired of traveling and all that, so I just told Vince Senior. I said, I'd like to just go home because I was there longer than any professional wrestler at the time in New York territory. For was the WWF, wasn't it?
Worldwide Wrestling Federation. I have your first.
WWF.
Yeah, your first match was on January 28th, 1975, against one of my favorites, the unpredictable Johnny Rodz, at a TV taping in Philadelphia. And I mean, and then like you said, the rest is history. You were there a long time. How did you? I mean, I'm sure Vince called you, correct, and said, "Would you like to work for us?"
Oh yeah, because I was. I was Polish. I was. I'm Polish, and I speak fluently. I could speak fluently Polish, and he said, "Yeah." He said, "Come out here, and on your interviews, I'm going to get an interpreter, and you answer me in Polish, and then the interpreter will interpret it in English." And I tell you, man, I sold out. I was really a hot item there. Every town I went to, they turned people away.
Oh yeah, that was back in the day. Madison Square Garden routinely sold out, 20,000 people.
Yeah, every month we ran it, right.
How did how did that feel to and back then there was no entrance music, there was no Titantron. It was just you coming out and everybody saw you and they went nuts.
They went nuts. They holler, whistle, cheered. Oh, hey, that's what it's all about, getting the people riled up, and I love doing it, Now they got music, all this fancy stuff as you go in. I told them, I said,
all you had was yourself. You just had Ivan Putski, and that was more than enough.
Exactly, and that was plenty. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're right.
Speaking of wrestling, I'm curious. Obviously, other than some of your involvements and the feuds we talked about, your being the first Polish athlete to do a lot of what you did, you're often associated with the Polish hammer, that huge move you would do.
Oh yeah,
I'm curious. Right. How did that come about? Who came up with that move?
Joe Blanchard. When I first started, he said, "Look." He said, I was just thinking and see what you think. He said, your move and the winning to win.
The finisher.
He said, the move that I want you to do, or it's up to you. No, he always asked me if and he came up with it. He said, just grab your both hands together like a hammer and throw the guy into the ring and just whack him. And we'd call it the Polish hammer. And rest is history.
And you know what? And Ivan, when you watch today's wrestling, I mean, they'll give each other power bombs, pile drivers, you name it. And then they kick out of it. No matter what it is, they kick out of it. And like Brock Lesnar.
Doesn't mean a thing. That's right.
But when you gave somebody the Polish hammer, nobody was kicking out of that. That was it. It was over.
That was it. That was the end.
We jumped up in our seats the minute you hit that Polish hammer because we knew it was 1, 2, 3 and it was lights out.
Yeah, people really, I really got over, and I really love the people, and they really were behind me. Everybody, everywhere I went, I sold out. Everywhere. Not one time that I didn't sell out. And Vince McMahon Sr., of course, he made a lot of money, and on same token, he took care of me too,
Yep.
So was the money that much? I'm sure it was a lot better going to New York than it was in San Antonio. But was there more travel in New York, or what was the differences between the two territories?
Oh, there's a lot of difference, It's like you said, the money was, 10 times more what I was making, because the towns aren't that as big as like Madison Square Garden. What does it hold? 100,000 people?
It probably felt that way when you were wrestling there. It's probably about 19,000, 20,000. But then you had Boston Garden, you had the Baltimore Civic Center, you had the Philadelphia Spectrum, you had all those places.
And then we went in Philadelphia. One year we went into the stadium, and we worked a lot of times in big stadiums, for special shows that we had.
Right.
We'd work up a grudge match, and so we knew the Madison Square Garden wasn't big enough, so we went into Philadelphia Stadium down there where they played pro ball, and boy, people just came in there.
Well, and Ivan, I've said this in the past. You guys were salesmen. I look at it that way, because if you guys didn't sell tickets to the arena, you guys weren't really getting paid. So it's your job, when you're on the TV, to sell tickets.
Exactly.
Is that pretty accurate?
Yeah, you're exactly right. The promoters would tell you, hey, you're going to make as much as you draw. And I tell you, I was so hot when in Texas. Vince McMahon Sr., he called me up, and I said, yeah, I'll be through here in a couple of months. And he really wanted me bad. And finally, when I came to New York, boy, he took care of me good. But I was selling out everywhere I went.
Yep.
Well, and then
everywhere I'd go, I'd sell out.
Speaking of popularity, I'm curious. We've had some people on in the past. Benny mentioned about the selling. Larry Zbyszko was a guest recently, and he told us that the idea you don't sell, you don't eat, and he talked about recognizing. I saw you at a convention a few years ago, and you still had the crowd. It was there was some promotional pictures with you and Tito Santana, and you still drew. You still drew a crowd. You still had fans. I'm wondering, how does it feel? I mean, you got guys who weren't even born when you started your career that have been fans of your work. Like, how does that connection? Wrestling is just such a unique bond with the fans. How does that feel to know decades later you're still so revered and loved by the fans?
Well, only one word: feels great. Yeah, those kids would say, yeah, Mr. Putski, I saw you on, my dad has some tapes of you, and, I said, yeah, well, that's great. But a lot of people, that never seen me, that see me on, somehow on TV tapes of the old matches that, pro wrestling used to have, and yeah. But the nice thing about it, I met so many people, such nice people throughout my wrestling career, and I really enjoyed that.
You always seem like you enjoyed your wrestling, Ivan. Now, even when you started with WWF, it looked like you were still doing shots for AWA, because I have here in a 4-day period. In June 21st, you did. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I say June 21st you did Milwaukee. June 22nd you did Steubenville, Ohio for the WWF. June 23rd you did Landover, Maryland for the WWF. And then June 24th, which was my 20th birthday, you worked for wrestle in Omaha for the AWA. I mean, that's my note here is, weren't you tired?
Well, no, tired's not the word. I was beat, but hey, I looked at it like this: better make my money while I'm young and while I still have the opportunity.
Right.
So hey, I pushed myself, and another thing, I'd get up early so I could work out. I'd go in a gym, push that iron, and then I'd go to the hotel, eat, go to the airport, go to the arena, go to just same routine every day for years and years. I had this same routine.
So you lived a pretty clean lifestyle. That was another question I had later on, though, Ivan, with your bodybuilding. So when you were wrestling, before you really got into bodybuilding, you just mentioned that you went to the gym every morning. You pumped the iron, and then you said about eating. Now, nutritional science, 40 years ago isn't what it was now. But I mean, there was a science of eating back then. Did you eat clean then, or did you wait till actually you started bodybuilding?
Sure, there was. No, I've always ate good protein and a lot of nuts and fruit. Oh yeah, I was brought up that way.
Did you have a hard time being able to eat healthy when you traveling the way you did?
Yeah, I did. Matter of fact, I sure did. I had to go. I'd ask for just salads and stuff while I was on the road and eat steaks. Good.
I would
protein.
think. Yeah, I would think most of your coworkers probably stopped at like for a greasy hamburger and fries, and I just don't see you doing that.
Oh, they did, but I
Yes.
didn't. I went to a good restaurant.
Yeah.
And I ate good food. Yeah.
Okay.
You mentioned earlier when you were talking about your workings with the Blanchard family, wrestling is very much a family business. And I'm curious, if you don't mind me asking, your son obviously had quite a career as well. At what point was that kind of his dad is one of the biggest wrestlers in the world, really, that was kind of it for him, or was that something you pushed him towards? Like, at what point did your son realize, like, I'm going to do this too?
Well, I never pushed my kids to do anything. It's they wanted it, so I let Scott get a taste of it, and and he didn't stay too long. He just didn't have it in him, and he didn't have the appetite that I did. So I'm not. That's what I was going to tell you. Other fathers would push them. Retired wrestlers, they had a son. I saw that, and I said, I saw the Fritz Von Erich. He would push his kids, make them do. I told Scott, I said, look, you go in and you see if you like it. I'm not going to encourage you. You're going to have to, if you want to wrestle, you got to want it. So he got a taste of it, and he, I guess, didn't agree with him. I said, that's fine, say. It's fine with me. I'm not disappointed. So, he didn't wrestle, like I did.
The bug didn't bite him like it bit you, it sounds like.
No, he just, see, I had a good gimmick. I was Ivan Putski, the Polish strongman, and, what got my gimmick over, I'd go and people see I did things that you had to be strong to do it.
Right.
And that Polish gimmick got over real good, and I was from Poland. I spoke Polish, and people bought it. See, a lot of these wrestlers with gimmicks, they'll come out there, and that's not even.
Yeah.
They've never participated in their gimmick, what they're doing, and hey, you can't fool the crowd. You might fool it for a little while, but they're gonna catch on. And see, they knew I was the real McCoy, and they bought it. And that's what made me.
You know, it's funny because you've mentioned enjoying yourself and the crowd interaction. There was a match going back to it was you and your son Scott against Jerry Lawler and his son Brian Christopher. And it was funny to watch in hindsight because you and Jerry Lawler are clearly enjoying yourselves a lot more than your kids are. And you two were much more over with the crowd than your sons. Even, you know, in an era when you guys were both in the torch passing era of it.
Right,
I just think
exactly.
I think it's crazy to see, like I said earlier, all these years later, you guys, I mean, you know, you're one of the names. You throw it on a poster and fans are going to buy tickets just for the meet and greet.
Well, yeah, you know, Lawler, he had a good name too, you know, and that was fun. You know, I like things like that. And you know, Scott, he got he went to the majored in law enforcement, and he became a detective.
Oh, nice.
Here in San Antonio, and I told him, I said, look, son, you're gonna have to pick either that or wrestling. You can't do both. So, you know, he said, I'll just stick to. Yeah, and that was a good idea. It's he'd have never made it like me, because there's only one Ivan Putski, you know. And I had the gimmick and everything, and but you know, I didn't push him. He did it on his own, you know.
Yes, sir.
I think, Ivan, you were just so believable, and that's, you know, I mean, when you see some of these wrestlers now, you know, I'm 65 years old. I speculate. I wonder if I could take this guy. You know, I never thought that with you. I'm thinking, like, you know, if you ever got mad at me, I'm running as fast as I can. And, you know, I mean, back then I could run pretty fast. But so when you look, according to my notes, you really went full time with WWF and you stopped splitting between the two territories around September 1975. And I had in a 4-day period, you went over Baron Cicluna, Waldo Von Erich, and Spiros Arion, who were three of the hugest heels in the territory. So you were obviously getting pushed big time. When you got there, did Vince Sr. tell you what his plans were for you? Like, was it, you know, how he was going to book you?
Well, yeah, you know, I wouldn't have left Texas. I was main event everywhere, making big money, and he told me, you know, he said, you're going to make X amount or more, because we're going to use you good. And hey, and I made that money for Vince because I sold out all the big arenas up north, Boston Garden, Philadelphia Spectrum, Madison Square Garden. I tell you, everywhere I went, people just packed in there. They'd hold up signs with Ivan Putski, Polish flags everywhere. Oh, it was really something.
And, you know, now if somebody buys a ticket to a wrestling match, they buy a ticket to see wrestling. You know, but then if somebody bought a ticket to the Boston Garden or to the Baltimore Civic Center, they were buying a ticket to see Ivan Putski or Bruno.
Yeah,
you know,
that's right. Because
they were emotionally invested in you guys. They loved you guys. Now, I mean, I still watch wrestling, but I can't say like I love, you know, any of the new guys. But we loved you back then, and, you know, we were bugging our parents, you know, to buy tickets so we could come see you. And that's something I think that's missing now.
Yeah, and you're not going to see another Ivan Putski or Bruno Sammartino either.
And I mean, thank God for you two, because I watch you guys probably 5 or 6 times a week.
You know, I was going to say you'll get no argument from me on that one. And the thing is, the numbers reflect it. The WWE published the first time they ever published their viewing numbers on the network, and pre 1985 had more views than any other era. People were watching all the old territory tapes, watching the AWA, watching some of the Texas stuff.
See there? So I mean, that proves it.
Like Benny said, even today, you know, you don't buy tickets for the names, you buy ticket for the event. Back then, you bought tickets for the names, and it's
that's
something
what
else.
drew the crowd, the name, right?
Yep. Yeah,
and that's because you guys did such a good job selling it, you know, with the interviews on TV and your matches and everything.
Yeah, because people believed us. They believed in me. They believed in Bruno. They believed in superstar Billy Graham.
Yes, sir.
You know, we had the guns. We had the we backed up what we said on TV.
Yes,
Mhm.
sir.
Yeah, and I don't even as a fan of the product today, I don't think anybody on the rosters right now would sell out Houston or the San Antonio Dome every week for months on end.
No way. Yeah, and we did. Every week we would sell it out.
Absolutely.
Hey, I was going to ask you.
Yes, sir.
Is superstar Billy Graham, is he still alive?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Oh, good. He used to call me, and a long time ago, and we'd kind of stay in touch. And last time, where he lived there in California, I call and they say he's not there. So I was just wondering.
No, he's in Arizona, I believe.
Arizona. I'm
Yes,
sorry.
Sir. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I know he's had some health issues, but as far as I know, he's still alive.
Yeah.
And he still pops up from time to time in interviews. It's you hate to admit it, but you'll see the headline, former WWF superstar says X, Y, and Z that's controversial. Before you click that article.
Yeah, it's always Billy.
They interviewed.
Yeah, it's always Billy Graham.
It's always Billy Graham.
Yeah, I know it. Yeah, there's only one Billy Graham.
And, that's such a good point. There was only one of each of you. You were so unique. I mean, there's only one Ivan Putski. There was only one superstar, only one Bruno, only one Ivan Koloff. But each of you guys, in your own way, you were so good and so original. Now we use the term cookie cutters, like in the WWE, the new WWE. Yeah. Everybody looks the same. But you guys all had your own look.
That's right. We had our own gimmick.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Benny, as we wrap up, we don't want to take more of Ivan's time than we need to. Do you have a final question for the legend himself?
Yes, sir. So, I mean, and again, we don't know how good these statistics are, but even if they're 80% accurate, I think you faced Billy Graham 112 times. You faced Ivan Koloff over 100 times. I mean, and you have winning records against all these people. Did you have a favorite? Favorite guy you like to work with?
Superstar Billy Graham.
All right. Was it because you were both strongmen?
Yeah, and he was a good guy. Hey, he was such a. I just liked. His real name was Wayne Coleman.
Yes, sir.
And I liked Wayne from first time I met him.
There's a lot of talk, Ivan, that and I didn't mean to interrupt you. I apologize, but when he was the champion, and you had many matches against him when he was the champion, and he was starting to get over with the crowd, and there was a lot of, I mean, even now, there's a lot of talk that they should have actually turned him babyface and kept the championship on him, because he was, I mean, you guys were selling out everywhere. And I think, say they turned him babyface and had him feud with an Ivan Koloff, that could have sold out for like a year just by itself.
Oh, you better believe it. Well, that just shows you that the promotion isn't as hot as they think they are.
Right.
Right.
You know?
Absolutely. And then let me ask you something. You talked territory. Do you remember? Obviously, you said Billy Graham is your favorite opponent. Do you have a favorite match in your career?
Let me see. Favorite match. You know, I had so many great favorite matches that I can't really point out one. You know, I had a lot of great matches with Wayne, Superstar. I had Ivan Koloff and a lot of the other guys, you know, that I really can't just put a finger on one match.
You had a huge feud with Jesse Ventura. Did you guys really like each other? I really got the idea that you guys didn't like each other. Was that just, was that true?
No. Hey, we took care of each other. You know that. I'm glad you said that, because that means people were buying us.
Absolutely,
Everybody,
100%. Yes,
Absolutely.
sir.
we were believable. See. That's
I really thought you guys couldn't stand each other for years and years. So yes, you did a great job.
It was
that's
still
why,
still real to me, damn it.
just goes to show you, you know.
Absolutely. I want to say, Ivan, it has been a true honor talking to you. You are without question one of the greats. I know you probably hear that all the time, but I mean, I don't think wrestling would be where it is today without your shoulders and others that you wrestled with at the time, especially my wife from San Antonio. So everyone in her family that is a wrestling fan it idolized you and your run there. So I just want to say it has been a true honor talking to you. Benny, do you have any final words?
Yeah. Well, Ivan, I do have a request, and I absolutely, totally, I have enjoyed this so much, and I want to thank you for that. And I know you said you couldn't really sing because of your sore throat, but I just wanted to, maybe you can give a shout out to my other half, Maureen, and just tell her hello from Ivan Putski.
Moja droga, ja cię kocham. That means I love you so. Kocham ciebie z całym sercem, more than you ever know. How's that?
That
That's
was
awesome.
perfect. Thank you so much. You just
What
made
a
my.
wonderful.
Thank you, sir.
Again, thank you so much,
pleasure.
Ivan. We will definitely hope to have you back on. I know we didn't even scratch the surface of the countless stories you could tell us from your time on the road.
Well, I thank you guys for putting me over. If it wasn't for the publicity and interviews and things like that, there wouldn't be an Ivan Putski. So
Well,
thank you.
Thank God there wasn't. There is an Ivan Putski because
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, you have yourself a good night, sir.
Okay, you guys too. God
All right,
bless you.
stay safe.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
And there you have it, the legendary Polish Hammer himself, Ivan Putski. Benny, I know you put this together. What a guy. What do you think?
I just, I feel like I just had a steak at Manny's Steakhouse, and like the best steak. And then they said it's on the house.
It's funny, how we looked back then. I mean, I still looked great, even though I wasn't wearing a hat. Benny, you had the short hair. I couldn't get over the short hair. It's funny for those listening at home, and then we'll see this on the YouTube. We only recently transitioned with to our friends Monty and the Pharaoh on YouTube. So a lot of our early interviews, we never intended the video to be seen. So this is going to be a first for us.
Was I decent at least?
Oh yeah, no, you had your bit. You were wearing the shirt from your friend's tow truck company. Remember when we worked with them for a little while back then?
Oh yeah, okay.
And
I got it.
This was before you grew the hair out. It was fun, but I kind of want to touch on two things. One, a bit of a sad note. Obviously, Ivan did mention, which I thought was great. I had completely forgotten that he told us to stop calling him Mr. Putski and call him Ivan. But Ivan mentioned he was grateful that Billy Graham was still alive. Obviously, that has since changed. It just shows the impact he's had. And, the other thing, Benny, we mentioned in the interview, Baron Cicluna, there were names that came up, people that have been on the show or we've talked to their children or their spouses. And, we kind of unintentionally laid really the groundwork for the next couple years of the show in that interview.
That's absolutely amazing. And what a rivalry he had with superstar Billy Graham. That started back in the AWA.
Yeah.
And then it morphed into the WWF. But when you saw those two guys lock up in a test of strength, man, oh man, they could do that for 5 minutes and nobody would say boring.
No, not in the slightest. And those were really, I mean, Bruno had it, but if you were to take the locker room back then, the AWA into the WWF, could you think of any two guys with bigger and more impressive physiques than Superstar and Putski at the time?
No, absolutely not. And it's funny because after he left, like you said, he went, I mean, I think it was like 45 and he went into competitive bodybuilding.
Yeah.
Starting at 45.
competitive bodybuilding, and he did strongman competitions.
He did the strongman in 1978, I think.
Yeah.
And he played semi-pro football before
Yeah.
he started wrestling in
He
1969. Just an amazing career.
Played in Canada, San Antonio.
Yeah, I think
mean,
Joe Blanchard was the one that got him into wrestling. Tully's dad.
That's what he said, which is funny how he just casually mentions. I love that part too, where he casually mentioned, he's like, his son may have ended up wrestling at some point. Like,
oh yeah, I heard of that guy.
And it's great stuff. But Benny, we got a lot of good stuff coming up. Again, this is Valentine's Day week, so we hope everyone's enjoying themselves. Obviously, Dan and Benny in the Ring, we can be found anywhere podcasts are listened to. Our videos are on the Monty and the Pharaoh YouTube page. Benny and we will be on 30 again on Thursday, where I am once again, as it should be, naturally defending my title. The longest
You're starting
streak,
a dynasty there, Dan.
you know what? Four times. I would like to point out I'm a 4-time champion, and only one time have I ever lost the title. Twice I've had to abdicate it because of a certain someone having scheduling problems with me.
Couple of false finishes there. Yeah, a couple of swerves.
Yeah, a couple of dusty swerves. But no, it's great stuff. So for everyone out there, we hope to do this again sometime. We got a lot of archival footage to go through. Obviously, we didn't originally intend these videos to be uploaded, so some of that's going to be fun edits. But we got a lot of good stuff coming up. We got a lot of great stuff for the future. It's February, and we're booked through the fall of this year already. We got a lot of good guests. We got a lot of fun stuff coming up. So for the playa himself, Benny Scala, I'm Dan Sebastian. Have a good night, everyone, and we will see you next time on the ring.